So, good morning or good afternoon to everybody joining the Protected Seas and Hub Ocean webinar. Very happy that you're all joining here today. And I'm going to give it a few minutes just for a few minutes just for other people to join, but you're all very welcome. Just going to give a quick overview of the agenda of what we're going to be presenting today. So first of all, we'll welcome Virgil, who's the Director of Protected Seas, to present Protected Seas and the Navigator dataset that has been developed for several years now, and how that they work with that data and how that data is typically used. Then we'll give a presentation from Hub Ocean. I should have said my name's Tom and I'm from Hub Ocean, in case you didn't see the background here. We'll show how that data is sitting on Ocean Data Platform and how it can be used on there as well. So we hope that everybody joining gets a little something out of it, whether you're familiar with the Protected Seas Navigator or familiar with Ocean Data Platform or new to both of them. Everybody's welcome to join and hopefully learn something about this really nice data set and the platform that we're building. So with that, I will hand over to Virgil to say a few words about Protected Seas and Protected Seas Navigator data. Virgil.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom and Hub Ocean, for hosting this webinar this morning. We're excited to be here and talk about Navigator. So I'm Virgil Zetterlund. I'm Director at Protected Seas. We're a US-based organization working in ocean conservation technology, information, data, and tools. And again, particularly today, talking about the Navigator platform and how it's used in Hub Ocean or available in Hub Ocean. And at its most simple, Navigator is a global open access spatial database of area-based marine protection measures. And that's packing a lot into a short sentence. So again, to get a little more detail, so we're really the only global database with a comprehensive regulatory focus. So we're looking for this to document and include the specific regulations and rules and restrictions, not only for marine protected areas, but other area-based management tools globally. The types of things you'll find in Navigator include conservation measures for area-based conservation, fishing regulations, particularly area-based fishing regulations or fisheries management areas. For each area, we generate a level of fishing protection score, which we'll talk about, links to management plans. We go through an assessment for around over 30 human activities and fishing activities, whether they're allowed, restricted, or prohibited, listing species of concern that are from management plans or enabling regulation, and a host of other information. We've built this to try to adhere to the FAIR principles, which is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And that's one of the reasons it's, we're on the Hub Ocean platform. This is one of the ways we make the data interoperable, really all of these things. And it's pretty again, in terms of scope, we have over 25,000 areas, and that is growing in over 220 countries and territories. So we would have what we would consider a fairly full review of marine protected areas globally, fisheries currently in North America, but increasingly we're publishing fisheries for Europe. We do have fisheries in Australia and New Zealand, and over the course of the next year, we'll be adding fisheries management areas for many more countries. This data is at its highest level. It's a global database. It's organized by countries and territories, as well as subnational units, where subnational units are appropriate. So depending on how you want to consume this data, you can look at it all together, or you can easily break it out by a specific country or territory. We also do organize this data via the exclusive economic zones and territorial seas as well, depending on what your focus is. So to get an idea of, again, the types of activities that we're specifically reviewing, so we have 22 different types of fishing and fishing gear. Things in bold in this list are new in our version 2 dataset, which we've published a number of countries so far in version 2, and again, that's our main focus right now, is adding this version 2 data for the whole world. And we have 15 non-fishing human activities covering navigation-related aspects for vessels, as well as things like non-fishing industrial extraction and aquaculture. One of the reasons we wanted to build Navigator was to allow apples-to-apples comparison of level of fishing protection across the world, across political boundaries. In our definition, or in our construction of level of fishing protection, this is a measure we developed. It's based on the strength of regulation. So we're not reaching enforcement or other aspects of effectiveness, which are often extremely hard to assess at a large scale because of lack of transparent information. But we are assessing based on the law or the management plan, which generally is available. So this score runs from 1 to 5. Our 4 and 5 are what we consider equivalent to highly or fully protected in the MPA guide system. Generally, these correlate and publish data pretty closely, and that's where almost all fishing is prohibited or prohibited with a few exceptions. Our level 3 are moderately restrictive. A good way to think about that generally is where commercial fishing, particularly industrial fishing, is prohibited and or heavily restricted. A level 2 is an area where there's at least one fishing restriction or management measure above and beyond the background base level for the EEZ or territorial sea. It really just means some form of management exists typically. And then a 1 is an area where we actually could find no fishing restrictions beyond the background. So a 1 is what we would call sort of your paper park. So a marine protected area was established, but its rules, at least where it concerns marine life extraction, don't differ visibly from the waters surrounding. One of the reasons, as we started to build Navigator, we realized beyond discovering what's happening in any given management area, there's significant management overlap in most countries and in the high seas. So Navigator provides an interesting lens at how all of these restrictions can stack up. And this is important because as we talk about expanding protections, and particularly as we look at targets beyond 30 by 30, it's important to be able to measure beyond just marine protected areas. Management overlap, again, is extremely common. This is one example in New Zealand where we have 21 overlapping management measures. This view is from our Navigator public map at map.navigator.org. For anyone who just wants a simple visual way to explore the data, this is the restrictions report for this given point. You can see, again, our grid of fishing gear and activities here, highest level of restriction across the overlaps, and then what the individual contributions are to get to this level from the underlying areas. So again, just to sort of give an example of the complexity of data in Navigator and why having it on platforms like Hub Ocean is great. Again, if we zoom out to New Zealand, in Navigator we have 1,521 managed areas, including subzones in New Zealand. So again, we look at this with just all the boundaries. You can see there's significant overlap. Of that, 149 are IUCN marine protected areas, and the rest are other forms of area-based management tools. So if we look at overlapping site count here, it's a maximum of 32 overlapping sites across in some spots in the country with an average of 6.8. So again, and if we zoom into the Auckland sort of area here, you can see even, again, as you get close to the populated areas, that's where you start to see this significant overlap in measures. So again, we code 22 fishing prohibitions and restrictions. So again, if we look across these overlaps, on average, there are about 14 of the 22 will be at least restricted, if not prohibited, across these overlaps on average, with a maximum, of course, in areas where all fishing is prohibited, that's our 22s. And, you know, down on this lower end, a number of areas that have just basically an LFP, or fishing protection 2 or 1 or 2 measures. So what's interesting, we look at, again, all these overlaps, we can look at the cumulative versus the individual. And what this is saying is on average, there are about four more types of fishing restrictions at any point in New Zealand by looking across all the overlapping management and looking at the maximum of any individual area. So by being able to look at this all together, you're getting a much clearer picture of what's restricted and allowed at any given point. That raises to a maximum of 11. Again, some of these, this particular area we've zoomed in. And then lastly, again, what we find in our, when we look for these 22 fishing types, a lot of times management or lawmakers are silent on different types, and we mark those as unknown. And, you know, that's not a satisfying answer when you're trying to do analysis necessarily, because then you have to make an assumption about whether that activity is restricted or allowed. You know, is it unknown because it never occurs? Is it unknown because it is regulated by some other authority and it is allowed, and you'd have to try and find that somewhere else? So again, what we look at in this graph is if we point in New Zealand and basically say how many unknowns in these fishing restrictions can we answer by looking at the areas that overlap, what we find is, again, about we reduce the total unknowns for any point in these waters by about 4 out of 22, or almost 25%. And by as many as 12 in some cases. So again, having this all together gives us a much clearer picture of the human element. And I'm just going to, again, wrap that up there with that case study and turn it over to Tom, who's going to show, you know, not only sort of how navigators are looking at the regulatory perspective and all these overlaps, but how on the Ocean data platform we can start to mix that with other types of data as well.
Thank you so much, Virgil, and thanks for the presentation. It's always really nice to just see different ways. I've seen you present it several times, and every time there's a different way of looking at that data. And I think that's why we are so excited with the partnership that we have with you to see how other people could also work with Protected Seas navigator data. So I'm just going to start with a few short slides just to describe, just to tell you guys a little bit about who we are. So I just say, again, my name's Tom Red. I'm the Ocean Governance Manager here at Hub Ocean. We're a non-profit ocean tech foundation based in Norway, but we work at a global level. We're developing this platform called the Ocean Data Platform. And what we would like it to be is a place that really supercharges, powers ocean data flows. It's a place where you can upload your own data, you can share your own data with colleagues and collaborators, or even publish it. And you can also access some very interesting datasets, for example, Protected Seas Navigator, alongside some other datasets on the platform. And the way that we then see people working with that data is in a number of different ways. One is some first-party tools that we develop, like a website and Python and other SDKs, and I'll show a little bit about that in the presentation today. We also see people using it with workspaces, whether that's one that we host, which is a Jupyter Lab environment, or Google Colab, which I'm actually going to show today, or other ones like GitHub Codespaces. And then we also have a number of different integrations built on top of the platform that allow you to interact with data on the platform, for example, in GIS software, or building visualizations that could be embedded in a website. So on the agenda for the from our side today, we're going to show how to find data in the public catalog of ODP. And then we're going to show how you can work with Protected Seas Navigator specifically on ODP, both with no coding and a little bit of coding tools, but won't go into too much detail on that. If you're interested, we'll organize some more deeper webinars, more technical webinars. And then we're also going to show how people can upload their own data to the Ocean platform and share that with other people. If you haven't registered or haven't looked at ODP yet, I've left a link to the app on the bottom of the screen here, and also a QR code. So we encourage you to just go there if you wanted to follow along. It's free for anybody to sign up. It takes a few seconds. You just need to verify your email. And with that, I'll show what we wanted to show today. So in fact, maybe I will just start with a logged out view. If you haven't already logged into ODP, this is what it will look like. You'll have access to the public catalog, but you won't be able to upload your own data. So if you want to be able to do that, you'll need to create an account. It's quite easy. You just put in your email address, get a verification code, and you need a password and things like this. And that will be done. And we'll put a link to the app in the chat so that you can join in. So I'll just sign in with my account, and this is where things are probably going to go wrong. It's always fun to do live demos. You never know what will go wrong. So once we're logged into the platform, we can head over to the public catalog, which is where we feature data which is available to everybody who's a user of the platform. So you can see here that Protected Seas Navigator v2 is at the very top of the list, which is nice, makes it easy to find. But if you wanted to look for other types of data in the platform, you can search by the search bar. You can find then, for example, coral data. You can also do a geographic search here or a date range. We also present data in collections, and so this is groupings of data. And actually, I'm going to start by showing the Protected Seas Navigator as a collection, because it's just useful to show actually one of the things that we've done on the platform to try and make the Protected Seas Navigator data a little bit more user-friendly for people who are only interested in area-based protections. So the way that we have a direct pipeline to Protected Seas to make sure that we maintain data so it's updated. So when you go here, you always get the most up-to-date version of Navigator data. As you can see, we have the V2 version that Virgil mentioned. And in this first data set, we have a global database which includes everything. We've also created a more focused version of Protected Seas Navigator, and we describe it in the metadata here exactly what we've done so that you know the changes that have been made. In fact, all we've done is to remove the jurisdictional authority areas, which are things like EEZs. And we've also included fisheries management areas, which are also typically not seen as area-based protections. But if you wanted those, they're in the other data set. So then you'll see what we present here is the metadata. So you have a citation. If you wanted to use that data, you can use that. There's also a number of different metadata fields. In this case, it's the documentation from Protected Seas. So if you wanted to go back and look at the original source, and I would really encourage you to go and look at the Navigator map because it's a really nice tool. And especially for generating reports, it's great. We also have the license, and every data set on ODP has its license there, so you know how it can be used. And we also have the provider. And in this case, we can see that it's actually a subset of the other data set. All data sets on Ocean Data Platform have a unique identifier here, which is useful if you want to work with the data programmatically using APIs or SDKs. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So now we can move on to the data itself. Effectively, Protected Seas Navigator is a table of data. It contains in this case 19,000 rows, nearly 20,000 rows. and 87 columns. And I'm not going to go through the all of the columns. In fact, Virgil already did a really nice way of summarizing the types of data that's included. What's really nice about Protected Seas Navigator dataset is how rich it is in terms of the amount of information that you get on each individual area. And that allows for a huge amount of different types of analysis. So I'm not going to go through the whole 87. I'm just going to call out a few and then we'll show some examples of how you can use that. So what we have here is the unique identifier, and you can see if you hover over the thing here, you can see what is actually that means. So that's the unique identifier for each of the sites. And then there's a number of interesting information like the site name, the geometry. So if you wanted to actually see what the shape of that marine protected area looks like, you can do that. And if you're interested in doing spatial joins, that's of course a really useful parameter to have. We also there is also a number of interesting other things, and I'll just call attention to a few. One is a species of concern. So in many cases, marine protected areas are set up to protect a particular species, and I'll tell you why that's kind of interesting in a little bit. And then also you can see we have the same level of fishing protection that Virgil talked about as well. And I'm just going to sort of spend a few seconds as well talking about the statistics that are generated on the Ocean Data Platform. So this is for the entire data set. You can get a quick overview of, for example, in this case, how many of these areas are at the range of 4 to 5 or the range of less 1 or less, which is of course not where we want to be, but because this is we update this data set, if new information becomes available that says that we're moving in to the right here, then that's great. We can see a positive outcome for the ocean. In each of the columns as well, we have a data quality metrics, which is really just to say how many values there are that aren't null and that actually contain data. So of course here you can see it's great that we have 100% values for the level of fishing protection. So as I say, not going to spend too much time, but there's a huge amount of information on fishing activities, what is permitted, what's not permitted. There are also some other sector specific activities like dedicated towards fishing. So we have vessel speed here or vessel entry. I would encourage you to explore this in your own time, and I won't go through each of these. So now that we have just the overview of the data set, we would be interested maybe in doing some exploring or working with that data. And we can just open this Explorer. And whilst we have that loaded extremely quickly, I was going to cut away to doing something else, but that's fantastic. We've loaded the entire data set here. So that's really nice to see. What this is now in a place where you can do some low code or no code, in fact, working with the data. Here, what I'm going to do is kind of do a little callback to Virgil's presentation, so we can get all of the area-based managements for protections for New Zealand. There's over 1,000. We only display the first 1,000 here, but if you were to export this now as a CSV, you would get the entire data set for New Zealand. I'm actually going to just include one other filter to sort of get down to a little bit more of a working level. Where's my level of fishing protection? As Virgil said, it's 5 is the best, and then you kind of go down from there. So we'll just apply a filter to have all of the level of fishing protection above 4. And so here we can see there are 276 sites that have a high level of fishing protection. You could, as I say, you could now export this, and this is a much more manageable file to work with on your local environment. The whole data set can be quite heavy, especially with the geometries. They can be quite difficult to work with. So if you do want to work in your own on your own computer, then it may be useful to just do some filtering first. You can then, for example, on the map, I will just click to this area because I'm kind of interested in it. You can then look at a specific site, and you can then go and see sort of all information about that site. And what I'm going to be talking about this in particular is the next part of the sort of the demonstration is to show how you can also upload your own data to ODP. So here I'm just going to hover over, and you can see that there are a lot of species in this particular area that are intended to be protected. But as you can see, they're all using the vernacular names, the common names of those species, and that's, I think, a very a good reason why protected seas is a great data set. This is taking data from hundreds of different management authorities documentation. So to try and then go through and harmonize all of those would be a very difficult job for the protected seas team. But we thought we'd take a crack at it here just to see if we could maybe create a reference table to link the common names of these species to the scientific names, which would then allow you to query something like OBIS or GBIF to get occurrence records of that species. So we're going to go back to the front page of Ocean Data Platform and move over into how to upload your own data. So it's very easy to do. You can create a new data set, give it a name and a description, and then start that. I've actually already started a little bit of work myself. So I'm going to head over to a collection that I've made, which I'm calling Protected Seas Analysis. And if there's any British people here, then you'll know what I mean when I say, here's one we created earlier. Here's a data set that we've created called Protected Seas Species Dictionary. And this is using LLMs to map the common names of protected seas species to the scientific names and their associated identifiers in GBIF and worms for OBIS calculations. So to upload a file to ODP, you simply select a file. In this case, we're going to upload it here. This is a CSV. It doesn't take too much time. You can then ingest that into the table format. And from here, you can work with this data in exactly the same way that you would work with it if it was in the public catalog. In this case, only I have access to this, but I might want other people to have access to it as well. So I can give other people rights to view or edit this data set. So let's, for the sake of argument, let's give Virgil the right to also edit this data set. So now he will be able to edit and view this data set. All of the data sets that we have in that you upload your own data also has its own unique identifier, which is of course really useful if you want to do any work with APIs or SDKs. And I'm just going to make one other data set just before we go into the sort of the analysis, because in the last part of this presentation, we're just going to show you how to upload your own data to the platform and how you can use some of the tools available that we've developed here at ODP. So there won't be any files here for now. I'm going to head over to a Colab environment, and this is just going to show, for those of you who aren't coding, don't worry about this, but if you are, we'll do some more in-depth coding tutorials for ODP in the future. So all we're doing in this example is doing the same kind of query of only getting the New Zealand data from protected seas data, which is using this unique identifier for the protected seas data set. And then eventually we're actually only interested in one specific site, and then we can plot that in a map to show what that site looks like. And then in the same way, we're getting the same data from the dictionary that we just uploaded. So I'll do this in real time and hope that everything works. It does, which is nice. So this is now pulling those two data sets to be able to combine them together. So we're going to combine two sites to get ourselves the scientific name from a site from protected seas. We can run some very quick analysis, which is actually getting some data on a specific species from OBIS in and around the area of that MPA that I showed a little bit earlier. And we have then some records of occurrence from OBIS. And what we can then do is upload that data back to ODP. And to do this, I will need to do a little bit of manual work. And this is just to show that it's actually working in real time. I'll need that unique identifier. I'll then go back into the code, pop that in there, and then with a few clicks, we can upload that data back to ODP, and this is the results of the analysis. And just to show that you can work with uploading data to ODP in different ways. And so now if I go back to this, probably need to refresh it. Indeed, we see that data. This is the results of that analysis there, which is quite nice to be able to just have the whole circle there. So that's pretty much everything that we wanted to show. There was just one other thing that, in fact, I forgot to show at the start, which was also we have a vector tiles API, this is the protected seas vector tiles API. So you can also build visualizations using ODP. So here, this again, going back to New Zealand, these are loaded in real time with streaming data, and you can also get the dataset information here. And yeah, this is sort of a newish feature of ODP, and we're very keen to get feedback on what people are interested in and how you would like to use ODP. So I think I'm just making sure that I covered everything. What we'll do now is leave a little bit of time for questions, both to Virgil and myself. We're very open to hearing feedback on how it would be, how we at Hub Ocean can support you in your work, working with Protected Seas Navigator data. Our platform is always being developed, and we're always adding new features, and we want those features to be informed by people who actually want to work with these kinds of data. So I'll stop sharing my screen now and check to see in the chat if we have any questions. I actually have enabled questions in the chat because I don't see any questions there. But if there are any people that would like to raise their hand, and then you can also ask questions. I'm not sure that we can even see that. Yeah, okay. Whilst we wait for people to ask questions, we prepared a quick poll. So we'll drop that in the chat and welcome people to respond to it. Don't be shy. If anybody has any questions, please just raise your hand if you can. Yeah. Maybe we should have asked this one at the end, but oh, we have some responses already. That's good. Yeah. We'll leave it a little bit more time. Yeah. Can you share the results of the poll? We have 10 responses so far. Q&A is where the questions are. Is there a way to quality check Julia, if you can unmute yourself, then maybe you could clarify the question. If you're asking about the quality check of data that goes into the Ocean Data Platform's public catalog, yes, we at the moment we quality check everything that goes into the public catalog. So we predominantly it's the Hub Ocean team that populates that that catalog with open data like Protected Seas Navigator data sets. We also have a number of different data sets that we make available. We do a lot of work with businesses actually to encourage them to share data that they've collected but just haven't shared in other places. So there are a number of different data sets, and it's I would just encourage you to go and have an exploration of the platform. We also allow people to request to publish their own data to the public catalog. And I didn't show that feature today, but we could actually, I could show you if we just open back up this window. If we go to the My Data side, I'll show you the example of the collection that I started to create. And this would be, where is it? Be on page 2, of course. Let's go for the Protected Seas Species Dictionary. You can see down here we have this option to request to publish. And if I were to click on that box, that goes into a review process where our team review the data set to ensure its quality, and importantly also to have correct and good metadata to describe that data. I think that what I've done so far wouldn't pass the test. I haven't included a citation. I haven't included links to many other links. So our team would come back to me and say these are the kinds of metadata fields that you would need to include before this data can be published to the public catalog. Okay. I see a question on how we can set up a Jupyter Notebook environment? Sure. It was a bit fast. What I will do is show it very quickly, and then I'll come back and um, we can do a more deeper webinar on how to use the coding tools available. So we actually have our own Jupyter environment here in ODP. So you can just click enter the workspace, and once you're a signed up user of ODP, you can log in to the platform, and you have a number of different options. I think with most people, you won't have up to a large amount. This is some more for internal purposes. We're a non-profit foundation, so we unfortunately can't give away large amounts of compute facilities, but we do at least enable everybody to have a small compute environment, so then you can jump straight into working with data on the platform. The other one that I showed as the Jupyter Notebook example here is actually Google Colab. And the reason I wanted to show that as well is to say that you don't have to only use the platform to work with data. You can also work with data in many different tools. And I think would very much encourage people to join for a separate webinar to go into more of those kind of tools. There was a question also in the chat: would it be possible to upload coral reef data, e.g. benthic cover from Mermaid? And does the API can be exported to XLS? Yes. So the answer to that question is absolutely yes, Alexander. We actually have another webinar that we've organized earlier this month, and we'll do again this week, in fact, on exactly that use case, but in Kenya. So it would be uploading coral reef data and then into the private space, and then actually combining that with the protected seas data set to calculate what percentage of coral reefs are protected, are within marine protected areas in Kenya, within marine protected areas. Sorry, I'll say that again. To calculate the percentage of coral reefs that are contained within protected areas. So it's absolutely possible to do that. Whether the data can be exported as Excel files, at the moment, no, we support CSV, Parquet, and GeoJSON, but we're also open to adding new features all the time. So it's really great that you ask about that, and we can certainly look into that. Good. You'll be very welcome to join. I think one of the things, so maybe Virgil didn't touch upon it, but maybe I could ask a question to Virgil, because I think it's a really interesting aspect of the way that ProtectedSeas develops this data set. Virgil, could you say a few words about the process that you use to find that data and to discover the data and populate the Navigator data set with?
Yeah, sure. So it's still very human labor intensive, but I think that's part of why the data quality is so high. So we have a team of 6 to 10 people generally working on this all the time. About half the team are actually barred attorneys who work with deep experience in ocean law, as well as our GIS and application engineers. So we generally work sort of country by country. So when we start a country now re-review, because we've sort of been through everything once, we go back to our original source list. We start looking for all the open public data. We email, for any given country, probably tens of management authority contacts asking for additional data or any data they have. Out of that, the GIS team sort of takes a first crack at creating, they take our existing list of sites. We actually have the non-public list of sites, which were the sites that we found references to but could never complete because either legal information was lacking or boundary information was lacking or some combination of both. So they sort of start with where we are list. They compile all the most recent source material, cross-reference that to create a new list of basic, what we know and needs just a glance to see if it's changed versus, in this version 2, we're finding a lot of, the good news is I think we're finding more information is being provided by countries and management authorities. So we're revisiting that back catalog, so to speak, and being able to add more sites that we knew existed but weren't really, we didn't have sufficient information. So that becomes sort of an iterative back and forth then between the mapping team and the legal team. And sometimes legal finds references to sites in the legal documents that weren't in the GIS data. So again, if GIS can go re-hunt with that list, again, down their management contacts list. If the boundary is sufficiently described in the legal document, and there's no digital boundary available, we'll digitize it ourselves. That's all clearly marked in boundary source, one of our attributes. That's a digitized sites by our team is around 15% of the total catalog right now. Surprisingly, perhaps a lot of that is subnational sites from very large countries like the United States, which you would expect would make all the boundaries digitally available, but not necessarily always the case. And then once both teams feel like they're sort of to a stopping point, then there's an internal QA/QC process, and then it's updated. We do not exposed today on Ocean Data Platform, but probably in the future, we do have a full version history of every site, including the update dates. With version 2, we're cataloging when changes are made, the type of, basically, was the change legal or boundary, both, and then for each, just did the level of protection significantly increase, decrease, stay the same, and similarly for the area coverage. So we hope over time, this data set also becomes a really nice one for looking at the, obviously we want to see the growth in protection towards 30 by 30 and other targets, but we also want to make sure that if global attention shifts away from ocean protection, that countries don't start rescinding or backing off their protections in the future. There's definitely a history of that happening in land conservation. Where big parks are created, big restrictions, but then when the attention turns away, business interests and others go in and start sort of peeling away at the boundaries of national parks and other things. So we want at least the data available, maybe, so that we as a global ocean community can watch for that and be on guard against that.
That's really excellent, Virgil, and thanks for sharing a little bit more detail. I think we all shouldn't underestimate the significant amount of work that you and your team put into creating this data set, and that it's a really, as you say, it is a very human-centered approach to compiling it. And I think that's one of the reasons it makes it such a comprehensive data set on marine protected areas and a really unique data set on marine protected areas. And what we like to do in this, of course, is to show people that and hope take that and start using that in their work more and more. And certainly that will be a great opportunity as well to look at the versioning history and adding that to ODP when it's officially developed. And also from our side on ODP, that's something that we definitely have on our product roadmap is to have more version history of data on the platform. I'm just following in the chat to see if there are any other. Yes, so there are many things that we don't touch upon in the webinar today. We will be very happy to welcome you to more technical sessions. We're also always looking for examples, and there were a number of different examples that we thought about presenting today. One would be how to use the tools on ODP to do spatial queries. So, for example, if I have a restoration site, a site of interest, and that's a geographic point, to then use the tools in ODP to return the areas that are in the protected seas data set. So, for example, is you could do that in many different ways, whether it's a coral reef restoration site, or if you have an asset in the ocean and you want to know its proximity to a marine protected area, then you could also use the data set to do that. Or for example, if you wanted to calculate the amount of time a ship spends in protected areas or area-based areas with protection levels, then you can also do that using the platform. And we have a number of examples of that we'd be happy to share, or even do webinars on if there is interest. So there's a poll up I can see. Yeah, this goes to exactly this kind of question. What would you find useful for future webinars or other examples of training that we could do? I'm just going to have a little look at the. Yeah. In fact, we also are organizing next week another Protected Seas webinar together, but for US audience. So it's a different time. So if you have colleagues that you think would be interested in this that are in the US, then please feel free to share the information, and we can share information in the chat about that. Nicholas, I maybe since I see that you've answered the question about the ability to visualize data, maybe I could invite you to say a few words about how you see that developing on the platform, if you're able to unmute yourself. You just need to unmute yourself, Nicholas.
Yes. Can I talk?
Yes.
Yes, I can talk. Very nice. Yes. So the open data platform is quite flexible, and you could use many different tools. We see, however, there's an increased interest from our user base to actually build this into ODP proper to follow to get this functionality more end to end. So we're working currently with the vector tiles to be able to display one data set, and we will follow with this up to combine different data sets in this visualization, and also following up with lightweight analysis tooling related to that. And I would like to invite feedback and comments and requests on that, so we can understand the most common use cases that this would be used for.
Thanks, Nicholas. I'm just looking to see if I see any other questions in the chat. Do we have one more poll?
The polls are done.
The polls are done.
Please go and revisit them.
Okay, let's just have
We just have the 3.
Okay, great. We will be uploading the recordings of these webinars to YouTube. So we will send around to everybody who signed up. We will send a link to the. I'm very happy for you to visit. You also please feel free to reach out to anyone at the Hub Ocean team, or I'm sure in Virgil's team as well, to if you would like some more information about the Protected Seas Navigator or about Ocean Data Platform. But yes, keep your eyes peeled. We will be doing that. So let's just have a revisit of the polls. Is there a way that we can show them on screen? I'm just going to have a look. We had first poll was, how would you describe the webinar? Interesting. That's good. I'm not sure I can share with everybody, but I think you can probably all go and see that. That's good. That's what we hope for. And of course, if you have any feedback on how we could improve these for the future, then please feel free to share. We had a good amount of interest, I think, across the board on the different aspects of the webinar. But that's nice and interesting to see. And then finally, looks like deeper dive webinars and documentation seem to be the the most popular responses to the how we can best help you working with these kinds of data. So we're very happy to do those things. I'm really liking the discussion in the chat, by the way, about the how we can all work together to sort of improve the workflows of people who work on MPAs or area-based protections, and especially on the visualizations. That's really nice to hear. And I think on the reporting side of things, I will be very interested to hear Alex. Oh, sorry, Tom. That was Tom put that in there. Very happy to hear more about the work that you're doing at the Global Coral Reef Monitoring Network. Yeah. Okay. Virgil, do you have any other points that you'd like to make before we wrap it up?
I just again like to thank everybody for tuning in this morning and for your interest, and thank Hub Ocean again for all the great work you're doing and very productive partnership.
Yeah, and I would echo that to say thank you as well for all of the work that you're doing, especially. It is a phenomenal job that you guys all do, and it's really impressive. There's just one other question in the chat, and that's a really great and excellent question. The platform is free. We actually have a question and answer section on our website, so maybe we could drop a link to the chat in there that talks about the platform is free. All of the features that you get now are for free. As I mentioned, the more elevated levels of compute in the workspaces, then we typically have a discussion, and typically we've worked in projects before. As I've said, we're a non-profit foundation, so unfortunately we can't provide the world with very large levels of compute, but we do like to work with people to empower them to do their work. And there is a very strong data protection policy for data on the platform. There's a terms of use, and that contains the data protection policy in there. But we can certainly make sure that is included in the frequently asked questions section of the platform. But it's something that we take very seriously, both from a policy perspective, but also from a technical perspective, to make sure that if you do upload data to the platform, it's secure and it's in a trusted place. But anyway, I think then with that, I will say again, thank you to everybody for joining today. We hope that you have learned something new and find some inspiration in using Protected Seas Navigator data. And we are both, our organizations are ready to support you in your work and take this in many interesting future directions. So thank you very much for joining, and hope to see you all again in some format. And have a good rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.